This is the DRF Players Podcast.
Hello and welcome to the DRF Players Podcast. This is show 274, the October 6th, 2017 edition. I'm your host, Peter Thomas Fornatel, back with you. Hopefully that's the only time I'm going to trip on my tongue in the course of the next hour. I am here with our usual guest to my right, sleeping on the carpet. We have Muggsy the Handicapping Labrador, and on the phone, calling in from Planet Texas. You know him, you love him, you played against him a week ago in an online contest. Maybe you beat him, maybe you didn't, but either way, he is the people's champion. He is Jonathan Kinchin. JK, what's up?
That was like a supersized introduction right there. I didn't even feel like I deserved that one, but I appreciate it.
It was impressive, your performance under pressure last week in the Outplay JK contest. Did you get some hate tweets after you picked up those points in the last race? Not enough to get you to qualify for the last chance Santa Anita, which is happening this weekend, that Santa Anita tournament, but enough to deny about 124 of the people who played entries.
No, I got no hate, to be honest. I'm sure it's out there somewhere, but it didn't make it to me.
Some of the pre-hate was amazing. I was actually surprised you didn't screenshot a certain picture of two handicappers, one circled with a heart, one with an X through him. I really did expect that to make the rounds on social media. I was a little disappointed we didn't see it, but it was very entertaining stuff. 3 contests this weekend at Santa Anita, if you're listening and have the opportunity to play. They're doing it a little bit differently, I think. Today's contest is a feeder for Saturday and Sunday. They do have bonuses once again. I think it's a $50,000 bonus should you win 2 of the 3, a $250,000 bonus should you sweep Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then, of course, a $1 million bonus should you win Saturday or Sunday and go on to win the Breeders' Cup Betting Challenge. Sadly, we will not be out there at our usual post in the Logan Suite. Too much going on, too much travel this month specifically. I am very eager to get back to Santa Anita. That will have to wait a little while. We'll get to be in Southern California, however, in about a month's time, JK, because the Breeders' Cup is just about upon us.
It is. I'm looking forward to that. It's going to be a lot of fun being out. Got to go to Del Mar quite a bit this summer with Win Play Show, and so that was fun. And to be able to get out there for the fall, it'll be fun as well. So looking forward to it. The good racing. Miss Santa Anita. But, it is what it is.
Talk to us about Win Play Show for a minute. I had a bit of a DVR fail, and I haven't kept up with the show as much as I would have liked to. Has a second, we saw your first episode. You advanced from that. I don't think that's giving any spoilers. Has a second JK episode aired yet? And what have you been thinking of the show in general?
I have no idea. I don't have TVG, so I have to go to my friend Robert's house to watch it. He DVRs it. So I've seen one other episode, and it was the one with the 2 guys from Santa Anita, Tyler and Chris. I think it's Ado, who's pretty active on Twitter. I saw their episode, and then I watched a little bit of our friend Frank Scatoni's episode, and then maybe there was one more, and then they're on to the second round. So I'm assuming that I'll be coming around the corner, but I actually haven't heard or I haven't seen it yet. So no one's tweeted or said anything. So, and I have on a shirt. No, the intro of the second episode I filmed where they made us stare at each other and walk down this walkway.
The hero shot.
I was trying to be tough, and I had on flip-flops. I know for sure that when that airs, people will tweet me. So I would imagine that I have not had my second episode on yet.
Rule number 1, very tough to look tough in flip-flops, right up there with very difficult to hook up in a name tag. But these are the things we learn in life. I wonder, and we should do the research, if there's a way for non-TVG folks or folks with malfunctioning DVRs to find episodes of Win Play Show online. Before the next episode of our podcast, we should do research into that. If you are a normal person with TVG and a functioning DVR, search your local listings, find the show, record the show, and let us know what you think on Twitter. Of course, I'm at Looms Boldly on there, JK at UT Big Hair. We want to keep up with what's going on and hear your thoughts. Always good to see horse racing on TV, and always good to make fun of JK attempting to do his hero pose in flip-flops. We have a couple of little notes from the last show, our accidentally supersized last version of the show, where we still didn't get to everything we were meant to. I got a very good correction that came in from our friend of the podcast, Rob Dove, one of the top 10 pro punters in the UK today, who pointed out, I had mentioned something about Shamie Heffernan on Highland Reel, and he pointed out that Heffernan would not be riding Highland Reel. He was on Highland Reel last year because Highland Reel was the theoretical second string behind Found, so the top stable jockey Ryan Moore rode Found last year. This year, with Highland Reel being the number one with a bullet entry into the turf for our friends at Coolmore, Moore would be aboard, not Heffernan. Very good note, and I was happy to pass that along. We also forgot somehow to talk about the Awesome again, which was kind of silly because anytime we basically both just mentioned one horse for the race and that horse wins, you would have thought we would have given ourselves some props, don't you think?
Absolutely. A quick pat on the back is always appropriate on a Tuesday following a 3 or 4-1 winner.
And it was an interesting situation. I saw a lot of people on Twitter befuddled by the result. Obviously, that wasn't the case with us, who both completely got Moob Tahij. What did you think of Moob Tahij's performance, and why do you think so many folks were befuddled by it?
I don't know. I mean, obviously, we're probably the wrong people to ask since we both kind of liked the horse. I mean, I thought that he had a chance to move up for Baffert. Baffert has kind of shown that he's one of the best dirt trainers in the world. See American Pharoah, see Arrogate, our two best dirt horses in a long time. And so when I saw that he was switched there and adding blinkers and taking kind of a galloping horse with stamina like that and probably putting a little bit more speed into him, kind of felt like the recipe for some good things to happen. And I wasn't over the moon with the field. I mean, Cupid was the big favorite there, and no offense to our friends at Coolmore, but Cupid's kind of, he's kind of a second tier type of horse, graded stakes type of horse. I think he was extremely fortunate to win the grade one that he did, and good for him, but he's not exactly one that you'd be running to line to bet in grade ones moving forward.
Maybe that was it. Maybe it was the switch to Baffert, and I've heard this before on days where Baffert does well or Chad Brown does well, and people, they think there's something, and we could argue legitimately the negative effect, in my view, of the game that these giant public stables can have. Maybe it factored into, there was just some cynicism about the rich get richer or whatever, or that somehow Baffert had the magic panacea to get the horse to the winner's circle. But this is a horse that made a ton of sense on form. And you're right, JK, it's not just like the magic of Baffert, it's the way he trains. This is a horse who's had some issues in races that maybe being more forward in a race was going to cure. Anyway, he's the winner of the Awesome again. Do you see anybody from that race having an impact in the big races as the year marches forward?
I'm not sure if Moob Tahij is fast enough, but he is the type of horse that, when you're trying to hit the trifecta and you're thinking about the second and third place spots, going 1.25 miles, second off of a long break, going a distance you think he will enjoy. He is the type of horse that I would definitely want to consider underneath. Do I see a world in which he wins, beats Gunrunner, beats Arrogate? No, I don't see that world, but I do see a world where he could be a very useful 1.25 mile horse, a horse that can be involved in spots like that. And so he'd be one that I'd be, interested in betting underneath, but not to win.
Possible vertical include for JK. I don't disagree. You mentioned Arrogate. The vibes around the horse seem to be getting stronger and better. Have you watched any of the workouts? What are you hearing? What are you seeing?
I watch the workouts, and I make jokes about it all the time. I don't really know what I'm looking at. Here's the honest truth. If I watch a horse work by themselves, it's really hard for me to tell. I mean, I can tell by looking at the jockey's hands or whatever. The ones that are really, I do feel like I have a little bit of a grasp on is when they work in company, and I can see who they're working with, and then I can like kind of, you have something to kind of compare it to, how much better they're traveling than the other one or whatever. So I watched his last work. I thought it was different. I thought it was amazing how low he carries his head. And I've heard from a lot of people that know a lot more about horse flesh and horse action than I do, that allows them to extend more, to have a bigger stride when their heads are down lower. So that's why they always look for that. And that was encouraging to see. So we'll see. But Bafford's done this successfully 2 years in a row now. Our last two Breeders' Cup Classic winners have come off of breaks like this where he trains them up. So there's no reason to think he can't do it again here.
It's interesting. This is a horse who last I noticed was trading in the UK around 7-2 for the Classic, a very reasonable number. I have a feeling come Breeders' Cup Day and the parimutuel markets available to most USA bettors, that number is going to be a heck of a lot shorter. With that 7-2 perhaps representing value and guessing whatever he'll be on the day here, not so much something to think about if you have access to those markets.
We might be 5 weeks early on this conversation. 4 weeks early. Actually, geez, I guess 3 weeks early. But I get it that Gunrunner has really turned into, at least at this point, the best handicap horse we have. But let's not forget that his two most impressive wins, he was odds on, and they were at 1.125 miles. I'm not saying he can't get 1.25 miles. I think he's run second. I don't even have the PBs in front of me, but I think off the top of my head, he's run second twice at 1.25 miles. I guess in the Dubai World Cup and then
certainly,
in the Kentucky Derby, I believe he was second. So
yes, that's right.
It's not that he can't do it, but if you're asking me who's a better 1.25 miles horse, I'm taking the gray one.
Be interesting to follow the workouts over the course of the next few weeks. Obviously, that'll be one of the big topics of conversation, what looms as this potential showdown for Horse of the Year, likely showdown for Horse of the Year between Gunrunner and Arrogate. Certainly just a race that gets the blood flowing even a few months out, and there should be some other interesting possibilities in there as well.
PTF.
Yes, sir.
Before you go to your question, I didn't even tell you. I didn't prep you on this, but can we do a little tech talk real quick?
Yeah, let's do it.
And I know you've seen it, and I successfully converted Nick Tamero. I don't know if you know that or not. I got an iPad Pro with the Apple Pencil, and it has revolutionized my handicapping life.
Interesting. Talk about it more. I've seen the thing. It basically looks like something a coach would have on the sideline, kind of. It's like this 9x12 deal. Looks like it's an iPad that's like 9x12, and there's a stylus that goes along with it.
Yeah, you got to pay extra for the stylus, like $100. But back in the day, our friend Frank Scatoni, I know a lot of people that handicap strictly off the iPad. One of the problems I had with it is there was a bunch of apps you could write on the PPs, the PDF. You go to DRF, you download your formulator thing, and you save it as a PDF. You put it on there. Then you can do your notes on there. You can write in, circle stuff, whatever. Highlight. A lot of people do a lot of different things. Write in your set, time form numbers to the side, or whatever it is that you do. I always found it annoying because you had to use your finger, and you kind of fat fingered everything. It just wasn't very clean, and it wasn't very precise.
Wouldn't look like the paper would had you used a pen and paper.
It looks like the paper now, and so I finally have made the switch. I no longer have to, my last search on my maps is not, is there a FedEx office near me? It's not, oh my gosh, are the PPs up yet so that I can leave to go to the airport? I mean, it really is changed. And if you're looking to make the switch, as someone who was resistant to it for a long time, I think it might actually work now with the upgrade and the technology that makes it a little bit better.
All right, well, I'll take a look over your shoulder a little more at Keeneland next weekend. I'm still very much in tree slayer mode as I sit here at my desk in the Brooklyn bunker. I'm looking at probably, a week's worth of PPs, pages stacked 200 high. It does help out, though, sometimes because when I'm down here working in the afternoon, handicapping races, whatever I'm doing, Perrin will occasionally visit and want to sit on my lap and hang out. So now I have her quote-unquote handicap where I give her the pen with the 5 different colors, the one I mean, where you can move the thing up and it's black or it's red or it's green or whatever. I give her that pen and the old PPs, and she sort of does her version of handicapping, coloring things in, and goes through diligently page by page, turning the pages. So
I think Confidential Charlie has one of those pens.
I've seen I've seen many many handicappers sometimes even getting super hardcore, going through with the time form, coding the blue, coding the red. It's very it's a very useful thing. Good old callback to Confidential Charlie. Appreciate that. Don't know where he's been. Maybe we'll have to get him back on the show someday. All right, I will take that under advisement, and I'm interested. And if somebody out there is using the same thing, share with us on Twitter. I want to hear experiences. I definitely see the point of getting away from the paper. I'm more of a just take the printer with me kind of guy, but that obviously brings up its own set of problems and challenges. Not to mention expense between toner and paper at the end of the year. You know, it's a few $100 you could be buying sandwiches and T-shirts and records and beer with. So, you know, I definitely take the point, especially with some of the new pricing plans on these iPads and for the data. Right, it's not unreasonable. It's not as much as it once was.
No, absolutely not. Yeah, that was kind of what sold me. Is it was a lot cheaper than I was expecting.
All right. Well, we'll take a look into that. Consult with your data provider, and if you're interested, and let us know what you think if you decide to go that route. We had a question come in about Ticketmaker from loyal listener Jim O'Neill. I'm going to read the question, JK, because you seem to understand exactly what he was asking, and I didn't really. So rather than interpret it, I'm just going to read it. I wonder if you and Jonathan could explain, when using horses in pick 3s, 4s, and 5s in Ticketmaker as A's, B's, and C's, why that results in a wager amount different than if the bettor merely goes to the track window and selects the same horses in the selected races. What impact is there having B's and C's in each? I hope this makes sense, as I had an incident where the amounts were different. Signed, confused, Jim O'Neill.
Yes. So here's the reason why. First of all,
first explain the question.
Okay. Well, first I'll do is if this is a question that you have, or if you're listening and you're like, dang, he might be right, or I don't really understand, you need to read Exotic Betting by Steve Christ. It's an absolute must, and it will eliminate this question from happening. Now, if you look at DRF Ticketmaker, there are usually 3 sections of bets that are made. There is your all A ticket. So all of your A horses, 1 ticket. There is your all A with 1 B. So there's, like, just bear with me, AAAB, AABA, ABAA, BAAA. If I lost you, you can rewind that and listen to it again. Then there's the A with 2 B's. So there's, and I'm not going to go through all these.
Don't go through all. Go through the top 2.
A with B with B, A with B with A with B, so on and so forth. So the reason it's different, if you were to just caveman the whole thing, is because you're not paying for every single combination. Because in a caveman, you're allowing your secondary opinion to be right 4 times. Meaning, if it comes B, 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 you have it on a caveman ticket because you've paid for all of those combinations. When you're doing it on Ticketmaker, you're betting it a little bit more efficiently. You're betting more in line with your opinion. So what you're doing is you're only allowing yourself to be wrong, not wrong, but your secondary opinion to be right once in the all A with 1 B, and then twice in the all A with 2 Bs. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And another thing I'll mention that's great about Ticketmaker and the thought process behind the betting philosophy Steve so eloquently espouses in Exotic Betting is that you also are very likely to have that all A ticket more than you're going to have the A's with 1B, and you're going to have the all A's with 1B more than you're going to have the all A's with 2Bs. In other words, you're giving yourself to get paid more the more completely right you are. So maybe your all A line is a $5 ticket, or at a pick 3, gosh, $100 ticket, whatever it is, that's a high amount. And then maybe at 50% of whatever that amount is, or very often in the way that you and I bet, JK, less, sometimes it'll be much closer to just having a couple of times whatever the minimum is with 1B, and then maybe even just the absolute minimum on the 2B ticket. Try to either get your money back or really get paid if something chaotic happens. But that's not the one you're not really trying to crush their souls on that 2B ticket. And we didn't even bring up, you can also have C level contenders where only one of them can be right, and then you have to be completely right with your A horses the rest of the way. We can spend a whole show talking about this stuff, but I think you've done a good job just explaining what the basic ideas are and why those amounts are different. In the caveman, you have 3 horses by 4 horses by 3 horses, then boom, that's your math, 3 by 4 by 3. When you do it with Ticketmaker, you can eliminate the combinations therein that you like the least and maximize hitting the ones you like the most for more times.
Here's a good example of it, right? And let me just give this quick example, just so that people that are new to this will understand. If you were to take a 3 by 3 by 3 pick 3, that was 27 combinations. If you had $100 to spend, you could do it about 3.7 times. So essentially, if you're someone that does 50-cent tickets, you could do a $3.50 caveman pick 3. Now, if you do it this way, if you do it with each race, you do 2 A horses and 1 B horse. So you have 2 that you think are really likely, and that third horse, instead of cavemanning them, you jump them back a step and you make them a B.
As a saver.
Your all A ticket, you would have it for $6. Your A with 1 B ticket, you'd have for $3, and your A with 2 B ticket, you'd have for $2. So essentially, the thing that you think is the most likely thing to happen, you're going to have that pick 3 twice as many times. And that is a significant edge when you're trying to bet efficiently.
And I'd suggest that generally speaking, in a pick 3, agree or disagree, generally speaking, you're going to want that to be like 5 times.
Mm-hmm.
Fair?
Absolutely. Yeah. And then the other thing you can do is you can when you go to DRFticketmaker.com, you can also say, you know what, I'm gonna be a little bit more direct here. I'm not gonna do my A with 2B tickets. I'm just gonna allow my secondary opinion to be right once, and then you can end up with almost a $10 pick 3 on your all A line, and so you can really start to ramp it up rather than betting the $3.50 and hoping that a price comes in and makes it worth it.
Remind us of that URL again for folks interested in playing around with Ticketmaker.
DRFticketmaker.com. It's like it's an everyday must for me. I go to it all the time just to kind of get an idea of what I'm doing. It's perfect when you have a friend who wants to bet something, or you're betting a ticket together. It's like all laid out there. You just text it to them, and there's an app on the phone. So if you're at the track, you can do it as well. So I know a lot of people use the one in Formulator, the one that's like built into Formulator. As someone who's used both, DRFticketmaker.com, in my opinion, is much more user friendly. You can kind of adjust it and do a little bit more, and you can even tweet your ticket. There's a share button on there if you want to be a public handicapper. You can tweet your ticket for the day as well.
We should do the next time we do a DRF tournaments contest. Maybe we should involve that idea of going to Ticketmaker.com and tweeting the ticket. We'll talk about that offline and maybe introduce it as an idea for next week. Let me ask you this. When you use the URL, the DRFticketmaker.com, as opposed to the version that's embedded within Formulator, will it let you bet automatically through DRF bets the way that the one embedded in Formulator will? You might not know that. You're a Texas resident. You can't have a DRF bets account. But do you happen to know, can you bet directly from there?
I think you actually can if you just vamp for 14 seconds.
Yeah. Well, no, I was just going to say that to me is
that is great.
It's a huge edge. I mean, it's almost
bet now. There is a bet now button,
and so
when you click it, it asks you to be logged in. So yeah, you absolutely can bet it from the.
So
in
both versions of this of Ticketmaker, you can hit that bet now button, and then those tickets will appear on your DRF bets account. And you can bet automatically. I'm telling you, the time that saves and how tedious it is to copy over tickets and repunch them and that kind of jazz. The money you'll save, that's worth, I'm not going to say it's worth as much as like some of the rebates out there in the world, but it's worth a whole lot. It's basically
the efficiency in which you can bet. Because listen, when we tell the idea about kind of like making 3 or 4 different ticket maker things, it could end up being 48 tickets. And if you can just have 4 of those windows, hit bet now, bet now, bet now, bet now, and you've made 48 wagers in that small amount of time, and they're efficient as heck, man, you're really betting at a much higher level.
Yeah, you're definitely that's going to make you money in much the same fashion that just having money rebated will. Okay, lots of races to talk about. I wanted to get to them even sooner, so we have to speed round just the littlest bit, JK. I do want to say at the start here, we're having sort of a bonus show this week, if you will. You can sign up now, drf.com, tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. Eastern. You, me, Mike Maloney, first time as a guest on the podcast or podcast-related content. We're going to be going over this special Belmont and Keeneland pick 4. So maybe those races in particular, JK, I don't want to mess over loyal Friday pod listeners by not talking about them at all. But let's go over them very quickly, knowing that if folks want, we're going to have a full half-hour discussion of those 4 races on the show tomorrow. Register to watch live, or we're going to try to get it archived ASAP to drf.com/YouTube. That's for the Belmont Keeneland handicapping session tomorrow, 10 a.m. Please join us.
You're probably better off listening live because it's a Saturday and
yes.
We're all going to be running around, and the chance of us not getting it uploaded for download in time it's higher than it would be on a Friday.
That's fair.
So if I was you, I would just listen.
Listen in live. We'd love to have you.
An opportunity to hear Mike talk is like nothing. I just sit around and just listen to him with like bright eyes. He's been doing it so long at a level that we all wish we could, and he's super insightful. So definitely tune in to hear him talk.
Yeah, we'll mostly be asking him questions and shutting up. But the 4 races there, just so everybody knows, that's going to be, I'll give them in order. Champagne Stakes at Belmont, 4:13. Claiborne Breeders' Futurity, Keeneland Race 8, 5:10. These are Eastern time. Jockey Club Gold Cup, Belmont 10, 5:23. And the Shadwell Turf Mile, which is Keeneland Race 9, 5:45. We're going to start off with the first of those races, keeping in mind what I said, JK, about timing here. Did you have a strong thought on the Belmont Champagne goes as race 8? It looked spready to me, and it looked like maybe try to beat the morning line favorites to me.
I have a single A horse here.
Really?
Yeah. Do you want to guess who it is?
All right, it's you, so it's probably one of those morning line favorites that I'm trying to beat. Don't worry, I didn't forget who I was talking to here. Are you going to continue to ride the Chad Brown train with Good Magic?
I am. I thought one of the greatest parts about taking notes is that you just can remember things you might have forgotten. And I don't remember if you remember this, Pete, but that was the day that we did the Saratoga bet, or the Naira bets, the Naira bets tent, when we like had no idea what we were going to do in the first, but that Chad horse was bet off the board.
Yes. And
was wide all the way around there. It was had a slow lead. They bet Good Magic like the horse had already won. If you look back through your DRF, I keep all my DRF clocker reports, and I'll search a horse's name to kind of look back at them. So I'll search Good Magic. You can do that on the Mac. You can actually search Good Magic, and it'll find that name in documents. And he was working with well thought of horses for Chad. Chad's confidence to do this with this horse. That's all I needed to see. I'm in a single A here. And then the B horses, we'll talk. I mean, whatever. We'll talk about them tomorrow a little bit. But I'm interested in the 8, the 9. I'm gonna try to completely beat the 11. I'm with you on that one. And then there's a part of me that wants to use Crazy Gio underneath as like some savers, because he'll show up in these spots and shock the world a little bit. But yeah, for me, it's going to be that Chad horse is my single A in that pick 4.
Just to underline, that was a day where I think the results have borne out the idea that the inside was where you wanted to be. And as you pointed out, Good Magic 3 wide in that race pretty much throughout. So very interesting, and it certainly makes sense. It just had a wide open feel to me, but you're making a compelling case to at the very least not get beat by Good Magic, despite the step up into Grade 1 company.
I think real quick, a note that has to be at least mentioned is Honorable Treasure. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in off the buyer figure, and off the fact that here's the part about it that throws me off. I'm going to use defensively. it throws me off because it was a wet, fast track. It was an off the turf situation where that was 2 races in a row they were running the horse on the turf. And then I heard someone, I think it was Steve Christ, or not Steve Christ, I can't remember, someone on Bick, what's the other Steve? Haskin, talking about how Honorable Treasure was like 9, or he was 6 clear. The second place horse was 11 clear. Yeah. But those are all turf horses, right? On an off turf track. So I fear the horse, but it's not a love affair.
Esmash, the second horse in that race, will be appearing later in the program for a little bit of a tease. Let's move on to the 9th race at Belmont. This is not a race that is in the cross-country pick 4, but an interesting race nonetheless. We have a restricted stake for 3-year-olds, and we have some old friends, including one old friend who, boy, I would have tripled my bet as they turned for home last time on Yoshida. We also have Bricks and Mortar coming back. I mean, for me, this race in multis is as simple as those two. Frostmorn, to me, has been in easier spots. I just get the impression that Yoshida and Bricks and Mortar are just slightly better at this point, and I like the fact that Frostmorn is the 5-2 morning line favorite, with the thought that maybe we could oppose it.
I actually texted our friend and one-time podcast guest, Sean Tugel, over at Windstar, that I was super excited to see that Manny got the mount for Yoshida. Nothing against Jose and Johnny and Joel and Irad, but it's something about kind of a young, up-and-coming guy getting an opportunity to ride a great horse that kind of gets me excited. And Manny's been riding so well, so it's I'm excited to see him here. I don't know what happened. I don't know if I haven't looked at I don't have the DRF PPs in front of me. I do have Time Point in front of me. I think that maybe the clock malfunctioned in the Saranac, because I don't see fractions anywhere. Do you see them on the PPs and DRF PPs?
I'm actually looking at time form as well at the moment, and there are no pace figures, so I've got to assume that's what happened. But remember, it almost doesn't matter the way that the turf course was playing at this time, because it's de facto, it was a situation that did not favor horses coming from off the pace. And I'm sure you remember Bricks and Mortar, I guess was it Rosario who was up last time on Bricks and Mortar as well? And he had to do the dirty work there and made that crazy move. How often do you see this in the PPs? From 6th, 10 back to 2nd within a half. You know, he made that move which also suggests that the fractions were fast. But again, even if the fractions were normal, the way that turf course was playing, the winner Voodoo Song had a very clear advantage. So I think you can give big upgrades to both Yoshida and Bricks and Mortar, given the dynamics there.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm a fan, but I promise you this is not a fan pick. I think he was, Yoshida had everything go against him. It was an extremely patient ride, which you'll get from Irad from time to time, and it pays off sometimes. I don't think it paid off in this situation. He swung 5 wide at the top of the stretch, and I thought he was going to mow him down the entire time, but the other horse just had too much left on the front end. And I love Yoshida in this spot. I think they're learning more about. Why do you like Yoshida
so much more than Bricks and Mortar, with that obvious trip excuse for Bricks and Mortar? Just curious.
Well, I mean, I think they both have the same. I mean, you're right. He did do the dirty work. He moved first. It's more of an opinion that I formed 2 races back, when I thought Yoshida was potentially best that day, but kind of got the more of the unfortunate trip going wide when Bricks and Mortar got the inside.
Fair.
So if I'm having to split hairs, I'm splitting them there. I mean, I have no problem. I'm not going to talk anyone off of Bricks and Mortar. But I think there's a lot of things that are going in Yoshida's favor in this situation that I feel better about. Bricks and Mortar was still inside of Yoshida last time as well. So it's 2 times in a row where I felt like Yoshida's probably gotten the second best trip between the 2 of them.
That's
interesting.
And so I wouldn't necessarily agree with last time, because Bricks and Mortar made that crazy premature move. I think that's always going to take the sting out of a finish. I do tend to agree 2 back, also because we've talked about this before, but some different the same trip can be a good trip for one horse and not that good a trip for another horse. And I'm not just talking about track bias stuff. Yoshida just seems like a horse who runs better with cover.
Right.
And did not have any cover that race 2 back, and I think it took something out of the finish. And you make an excellent point about the ground loss in that race. Anyway, it sounds like we have, for me, it's used those two pretty equal. Sounds like you'll be pressing up Yoshida in there. And with that, I think we should move on to the second race in this cross-country pick 4. We're actually making good time here. And that is the featured event at Belmont on the day, the Jockey Club Gold Cup. This race, as I pointed out on the handicapping session I was happy to be a part of last night with David Aragona and Mike Beer, which you can check out the replay of on drf.com/YouTube. It's a pretty lean and mean show, and those guys go through the late pick 4 and give some thoughts on other races as well. Great stuff as always from them, two of the most diligent and creative handicappers and horse players that I know. But I was talking to them about this race and mentioned that traditionally this was where the 3-year-olds would often step up and face their elders. That dynamic has gone out the window a little bit with the emergence of the Pennsylvania Derby and the chance for the 3-year-olds to run for so much money, staying against their own kind now in a way that you wouldn't ever see them run back into this race. Sort of a law of unintended consequences thing of this race getting weaker than it once was when it was like the big race of the fall. But we do have 2 3-year-olds here in Pavel and Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan adding blinkers is just a little bit interesting to me. I'm not going to call him the most likely winner. I think that's Keen Ice on the old fastest horse angle, doing what he wants to do in terms of the 10 furlongs. But I'm not leaving out Good Samaritan on my bets. Maybe more of a B horse even. And he might not be that good, but we saw enough from him in the Dandy. And I saved with him. He was not in our Pick 6 Travers Day. I liked him enough that I went ahead and saved with him. But it was 2 jumps out of the gate. The horse was so impossibly far back, behind looking at Lee even, that the race was over for him. Who knows? Perhaps the addition of blinkers, he's shown just enough. He should be a good price. Am I crazy with Good Samaritan here, Jonathan?
A little bit. I think people are going to overbet him again, based just like the time before, where the inside was good on July 29th for the Jim Dandy, and everyone saw him circling for home and thought that he'd been wide all along, but he didn't. He got down to the rail. Same thing happened last time. I want nothing to do with Good Samaritan at all. Not even a little bit.
You think he was on the good part of the track and still didn't run well last time?
Yeah. I mean, I get it. He was closing into a slow pace and all of that, but his Jim Dandy is a little bit less. It was kind of impressive because people were like, "Oh, dang! Like Good Samaritan beat Always Dreaming and Cloud Computing."
Yeah, they were a shell of them former selves, clearly.
And then they come back, and then they were bad. Both of them were bad again. So it's like, how good was that race really? Yeah. Beating those 2 horses that have appeared to go the opposite direction. It's Keen Ice all day, every day, ice cold here for me. I might take a look at like a horse like Rally Cry or Powell who could get loose. But I think that Keen Ice is going to sit a perfect trip. It's going to be one of those situations, and there's 2 of these today. I'm learning. I try to learn. It's one of those situations where I am convinced that no one is going to take advantage of the fact that there's no pace in the race, and they're going to do that hawkbill junk where they allow Keen Ice to just stay in the mix, and he's going to wear him down and win by 4 because no one's going to open up. The only horse that might even think about opening up is Pavel, and I don't trust Mario Gutierrez on that big track at Belmont to make the right pace decisions there on not going too fast or whatever. And if he tries to be aggressive, I think he's going to be over aggressive, and he's going to set it up for Keen Ice anyway. Either way, I don't see a scenario in which Keen Ice doesn't win this race.
He would be most of my play. I want to make that clear. He would be the A. Good Samaritan for me, I was thinking as a B with the expectation that he'd be 8-1 or higher. If he becomes some wise guy horse, you can have him. But those would be the 2 for me, heavily weighted towards your selection of Keen Ice. Let's move to Keeneland And the 5th race at Keeneland, we have some old friends in here, including a certain horse that likes to eat donuts in the Grade 2, Woodford, and a horse who loves Keeneland, who my eye was drawn to right away, and that's Mongolian Saturday. What did you think of this race?
It's like one of those races where, like, I for some reason I'm like the only person in the world that like kind of likes turf sprints. So I was like looking through it, like, where's one of the guys I love? Where's one of the guys I love? Where's one? There's not really anything I love. I kind of wanted to give Commend a shot, but then I realized it's just funny. You remember things if you have a summer being very involved, you just remember things. I remember that Commend, I believe, was an entry in that race at Saratoga that he won. There was 2 Belmont Claiborne horses, and like they just like laid over the field. He was 45 cents on the dollar. And he got a perfect pocket trip. And so I'm not really that interested. I kind of I lost a little of my sting for that one. I promise I'm going to give some prices later, but I liked Hoagie. I thought that, last time was with the move to Maker. No offense to Larry Ravelli, but we've talked about it before. I think that Mike Maker is one of the best trainers in the country. That personality probably keeps him from getting some of the top horses like some of the other guys. Not because he has a bad one. It's just he's not one of those guys that's going to, put on a suit and take you out to dinner and talk about wine. He's more of a low key guy, and I think that's
he's in the stall looking at the horse's legs.
Right. I think it's just I think that probably prevents him from getting a lot of horse. And I don't even mind saying this because I have no affiliation with the Ramseys, but like the idea that he wins so many races for them and they give all their good horses to Chad and Joe Sharp and Todd and he could probably deserve a few more. So I think that this horse is going the right direction for him. The horse can win at 5.5. He won at 6.5 at Kentucky Downs. I just think he's dangerous, and I think he's just better than these. These other horses, a lot of them are trying to find their way, and that includes the former Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint runner Mongolian Saturday. I mean, he hasn't won a race since Keeneland in October 16th, in a race where he was 4-1. So.
But I feel like he's cycling back. I feel like he's cycling back into his good form based on the last day. And my problem with Hoagie is just that everything was so perfect last time. Usually when you say last time was the time, it's about a horse that was 8-1 there and then is going to be 5-2 here. But I mean, to me, that was, claimed, I thought presumably claimed for the spot he won last time. And this is just the next logical spot. And it's such a different situation going to the sharp 5.5. He would be in the spread, but I couldn't lean on him to the degree that you are. Do you understand my concerns at all?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's just my selection. I've been using some other ones in here.
How about the Donut Eater? You going back to the Donut Eater on the cutback here, Conquest Panthera?
No, I don't like cutbacks to 5.5.
Yeah,
it just if you really think about it. Like they got to really run to stay close. I don't love the cutback. I don't love the not that sharp of one. I mean, I can handle 6.5 to 5.5 or 7 to 5.5, but the one turn Woodbine mile cutback, that's kind of sharp for me.
I was thinking 3 boring really 3, 6, 8. Maybe weighted a little bit towards the 6, just a little bit. And then I was trying to come up with maybe including whoever I think is going to be the best of the speed in here. According to the pace projector, they've got Bucaro up there as well as Latent Revenge. I couldn't really commit to either, but maybe just for a penny on the thought that he could get loose, Latent Revenge. Do you see anything there?
Yeah, no, I mean, he's almost gotten loose before, hasn't he? I'm trying to remember what race it was. At Churchill. I used him that day at 23-1 when he ran second. That would have been nice.
So that was just another thought for taking my spready version. Sounds like you'll be dialing down a little bit more into Hoagie to start your late picks at Keeneland on this very exciting Fall Stars Saturday. Let's move on to the TCA, the Grade 2. We've got a big favorite in here in Finley's Lucky Charm. In your pick bets, is this going to be one that you press up or even single?
I'll tell you what. Yes, I mean I'm going to use her a lot. I think she's really talented. And I think she's tactical. She's a lot of things. I get it. But there is a part of me that kind of wants to give the horse on the outside a little bit of a chance, Ivy Bell. I think maybe in some tournament settings I might be using that one. I like horses that kind of have that weird form, and people might just, they see the 6th, but they don't realize that that it was a spill if you lost the rider, and so they bet the heck out of her that day, and her figures before that were good. I think she's one that I'll definitely try to hook up. Maybe if I used Finley's Lucky Charm and her as an A horse, or maybe Finley Lucky Charm as an A and then Ivy Bell as a single B horse. But I do think that she's one that you would want to keep an eye on. She's drawn outside, so she'll be able to see everything that's going on. I'll tell you one horse that I won't have on a ticket, and that's Bendable. And Bendable is and the reason why is because, and let's see if you can pick up on this, and this will also result in a strong single on Sunday. There's a reason that Bendable got on the plane from California to run in a 6 furlong filly and mare sprint race. And do you know what that reason is?
Is the reason possibly called Unique Bella?
I would think so. I think Dick Mandela is smarter than he looks, and he said, let's get out of town here and get away from this thing and show up in Kentucky, and also the people from Claiborne can come over and watch their filly in the flesh. So I would think that's why they made this decision. Maybe I'm overthinking it, but I wouldn't want anything to do with her as kind of a secondary type of horse. And
things I learned about trainers on this episode of the DRF Players Podcast. Apparently, according to JK, Mike Maker, socially awkward, Dick Mandela, ugly. Is that...
No, ugly. Good looking man.
Oh, no, you didn't say ugly. You said smarter than he looks. I got it backward.
Okay.
No, so that does work. We're kidding around, of course. All right, let's keep going here. We'll throw a little bone for those who listen to the show for the pure silliness. We move on to the Grade 1 portion of the card, and that starts with the First Lady. Interesting potential pace dynamic here. We're sort of hoping that Dickinson and Hawksmoor might tangle with each other. Roca Roja, I thought likely to be the beneficiary of such a thing. Chad Brown, maybe he has studied that Breeders' Cup, the Breeders' Cup turf video from last year and become interested in the way that our friends at Coolmore sometimes use team tactics in races. Because watching the Boston Spa, it's hard to think that team tactics weren't involved. The way that Antono was sort of used on the front end, Lady Eli sitting in the pocket, and then Roca Roja almost impossibly far back out, unless things were to collapse, in which case she would have had it on a platter. Obviously worked out very nicely for Lady Eli in that situation. Maybe here it's going to work out nicely for Roca Roja. What do you think?
This is the type of race where I'm going to use, if I'm playing multis and stuff like that, I'm going to use the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 7.
Oh, really?
It's one of those turf races where the trip's going to make the difference. Jockey's decisions is going to make the difference. They're all capable winners, but how it all unfolds is how it's going to make is what's going to determine the outcome. And I'm not good enough to make those decisions all the time. I think Dickinson with Paco. I guess she's going to go, but then Hawksmoor is going to go too. So one of them might take back, and Julian might decide to take Hawksmoor back because Paco's on the I want to be president mode. And, you just don't ever really know what's going to happen in those situations. One of them could get loose or they could duel. I think from a value standpoint, I think Donna Bruja probably could get ignored a little bit. And that would probably be the one I would probably look at in tournaments or whatever. Or if Dickinson or Hawksmoor, one of them creeps up to an obnoxious number, it would also be one that I would consider, just because if one of them is to get loose, they could be dangerous, but then the other one could be dangerous too, stalking the other one not going very fast. It's a completely difficult race to break down. There's distance changes for horses. It's tough. I honestly don't know, but I guess if I had to make a selection,
it'd be Donna Bruja.
Yeah, Dona.
Definitely Roca Rojo for me there. Though I do take your point about strange tactics. And for those who didn't understand the Paco Lopez, I want to be president mode, great callback to before the Kentucky Oaks when on the broadcast, Jerry Bailey describing Paco Lopez said, he'd rather be on the lead than be president. Love that line. Let's move on to our second grade one.
What about nowadays, though? You think maybe...
Don't get me started. We'll move on to the Breeders' Futurity. We talked about Esmash before. For me, I was going to look back to the also-rans from the Hopeful, both of whom I had notes that wanted more ground. They both get more ground here. They both ran pretty well there, all things considered. Talking about number 7, Give Me a Minute, and number 9, Free Drop Billy. You promised us a price, JK. Is this where it comes?
No, I mean I'm gonna pick Free Drop Billy too. You know, I could get into Give Me a Minute, but I'm gonna trust Dale here. It's a home game for him. These are the type of races that Dale likes to win. He kind of he puts all his eggs in these baskets, and I think the Free Drop Billy is definitely live in the All Ball family. We've talked about it before on the show. I mean, how many good horses have they been buying over the years? Obviously, not this time last year. The horse that got hurt, Dak Attack. This one, they do a really good job. So I'm going to lean there. I do think Bourbon Resolution's a little bit interesting. You know, we know that Ian Wilkes is a guy that takes his time, and if you work your way back through the PPs, you can see that kind of happened. He just kind of shows up there, runs second, runs through that. He's 17-1. He's not bet. No one's expecting him to run well. He runs well. Then he goes to Saratoga on kind of an inside type of day, runs well outside, then shows up and wins by 2, finally breaks his maiden, going 7, shows up here, gets Leparoux, and it's kind of the 4th start in the cycle for Wilkes. You think you might get the best performance out of him. So I think he's one that could be sneaky underneath or even sneaky to win the race.
Let's talk to Mike about that horse on Saturday. Seems like a good example of what he calls in his new book, Betting with an Edge, the stair-step pattern. That book will be for sale in less than a month's time now. We'll have books in early November on DRF.com. Stay tuned to these broadcasts and keep your eyes on DRF.com for more opportunities. But I do like your case for throwing in Bourbon Resolution. Before we leave the race, give me, I didn't prep you for this one, but I think you'll be able to do it off the top of your head, an analysis of the trips between Free Drop Billy and Gimme a Minute in the Hopeful. Is it really more trainer angle that's moving Free Drop Billy as a clear choice over Gimme a Minute to you, or is there something that you saw on the tape?
It's one of those things where, like, I remember saying, gosh, Free Drop Billy just wants a little bit longer. He just wants a little bit longer. The average winning distance of his mare, not the mare, but of the offspring is 9.25. And ironically enough, 9.25 furlong. Ironically enough, Hawkbill, the horse who's getting more mentions on this show than Devisidero, is a half brother to Free Drop Billy. And in the race we always bring up is a 1.5 mile race. That horse is an extreme long distance horse. So I think Free Drop Billy's going to really appreciate the extra ground. That's more of what it is to me. If you traded, so to answer your question, if you traded the trips, you give Free Drop Billy, Give Me a Minute trip and Give Me a Minute Free Drop Billy's, I'd still pick Free Drop Billy based on the idea that I think he's going to really excel with more ground.
I buy it, though. Let me tell you, like in terms of just a pure router, a good-looking pure router that I saw at Saratoga all summer, Give Me a Minute. I mean, this is a long horse who wants the ground too. Anyway, for me, they'll be all over the tickets. I like your idea of throwing in.
Did you see this? Did you see the sire of Give Me a Minute?
Who I remember it, but it's not coming to me. Is it
Star Guitar?
Yes.
How about that?
Pretty interesting. You don't see that many of those, do you?
Let's get him a grade 1 win, huh? Star Guitar? Wow. Louisiana bred.
Be pretty cool. All right, Shadwell Turf Mile. You mentioned Devisidero. He shows up in here. What's the story with Devisidero, JK? Does he not want 10? Does he only run well at Churchill? Well, because he's like one of the most publicized horses in the history of the show, we'll start our analysis of this race with him, keeping in mind we have about 4 minutes left, and we do want to talk about the Santa Anita Sprint Championship too.
I don't know. I mean, look, one of his best races he's ever run, at least for me, was the race at Churchill when he won the American Turf on Derby Day, the American Pharoah one. That was at a mile. I think at a mile and a 16th, one of the two. So he's done it before, and that was one of his most impressive late kicks. I get they were trying to stretch the horse out and kind of get him into some of the bigger races. I think the Woodford Reserve is always so good for him because not only does he like the surface, but it's at a mile and an eighth. And other than him, I think a lot of these other races he's running in are longer than a mile and an eighth. His last two races were at a mile and a quarter where he came up short. So it's not that I don't think he can do it. And I hope that he will. And it feels like this wasn't really an afterthought, like they were kind of prepping him for this one. So I'm going to use him, give him a chance here. I'm gonna take a look at Heart to Heart though. Speed is dangerous in these types of spots, especially with a lot of kind of closer types showing up in here. It's a big full field, so that's a lot of opportunity for trouble behind him. He'll be clear on the front end. A little bit interesting that Julian hops off here. I don't know if it was a hop off or a takeoff or whatever, but he sticks with the big horse in Devisidero. So let's see if Flo can escort Heart to Heart around there. But those are going to be the two main ones for me. I probably don't have the heart to pick Heart to Heart in like a tournament. I probably have to stick with the Devisidero, but I think they're both live in here, and I'll give both of them an opportunity.
Miss Temple City looked like she was cycling back to her good form in the race last time. Obviously, this is a tougher test than that one. I definitely want Heart to Heart on my tickets. Appears to be the fastest horse with pace advantage. Don't want to get beat by that one. Devisidero to me might just be the best closer, and he's obviously a horse that I wouldn't feel good about myself if I ended up getting knocked out of something to him. That would change if I had some real reason to be opposed, but I have no real reason to be opposed, just question marks like you, so he'd be on the tickets. But I don't know. I also see Miss Temple City, if Heart to Heart falters, getting a really nice trip on a course she loves. I can't see feeling good about losing to her either. You left her out almost conspicuously in your remarks, JK.
Yeah, let me say bad things about her and then more good things about Devisidero before we go on to the next race. Look, she's just not, and you know me. My heart can be stolen by a filly, says my tattoos. She's not the type of filly that I can see myself 5 years from now saying, remember Miss Temple City when she won 3 grade ones at Keeneland against the boys? 2 is much more appropriate at this point, and I just can't wrap my brain around her beating this field again. Good for her, but I'm not gonna. I might use as a B or something just because I don't want to get beat when she wins, but I don't think I will.
It's just race design to me. I feel like she can lay close, and we know she can finish. So in the world in which Heart to Heart has a hiccup or goes too fast, or you know what I mean, I could see it almost falling into her lap with the closers being too far back. That's partially what it is to me. Design led me to her as much as anything else.
And the other thing I wanted to say about our friend Devisidero, if you go back through his PPs, and I'm not here to make a bunch of excuses. Let's go back to May 7th, right? And let's of 2016 when he won the Woodford Reserve the second time or the first time. He wins the Woodford Reserve, and then he goes to the Manhattan and he gets beat 2 lengths in a slow pace. Okay, slow pace. Then he shows up in the Fort Lauderdale, first off of a break, going shorter than he probably wants off of a break like that, and gets beat by a length. You can go from the bottom all the way to the top, and he has a legit excuse every time he doesn't run as well as we would all like for him to run. Beach Patrol came back and franked that form of the Arlington Million. He closed. He was hurt by the slow pace. Then he closed over that slow pace, 7 wide. Muggs agrees with me, and I think he could get the job done here. I just worry a little bit about the distance, but I trust Buff in this spot.
Muggs loves Devisidero. That's a well-known fact. Not the first bark she's offered during his discussion on this show. That might just be the math. Ballarox, before we leave, is a horse who has some interesting-looking PPs to me, and a horse who, at a price, I would also consider throwing in. Another one who has some tactical ability and has shown the ability to finish, has had some trouble. Would you give Ballarox any count?
Yeah, I stumbled over my words in the out of the gate that I talked about using him. Here's the thing about Ballarox I think is really interesting. Sometimes we have friends in our handicapping circles that like horses, and they're good handicappers. And I've had so many people who liked Ball of Rocks in his last 2 starts, and that was just enough to catch my attention. And for whatever reason, I don't think he had like crazy trips in either one of those, but he didn't kind of, he won the second back, and then so he's got my attention. He's one that I'm going to include just out of respect for people around me that have always liked the horse. So he's one that I would include at a price.
All right, we didn't give as many strong opinions as last week, but hopefully we gave
these races are hard.
Yeah, hopefully we gave enough guidance that'll help you put some multi-race bets together. Really quick before we go, who wins the Santa Anita Sprint Championship?
This is my second example of the Hawkbill thing where I think that they're going to go too slow and they're going to invite my boy Ransom the Moon in. I wish they wouldn't, and I'm okay if they don't because I'd rather bet him on Breeders' Cup at a better price. But I think he's going to save ground. I think people are going to be in love with Roy H. off of the trip last time. Yes, Roy H. was affected, 100%. He got carried out by Dre Fong. Ransom the Moon came right up the rail. I think Ransom the Moon has more to offer. I think that they're going to get the job done here. That horse has run 4 big numbers back to back, and I think that he'll run well here.
So Roy H. Second to Ransom the Moon for you?
That's the hope.
And I'm a Ransom the Moon fan too, and I think you're right. I think the sort of fashion of the trip and how that went down, you might see some undue money landing on Roy H. Play Ransom the Moon here, almost hope that he's a hard-charging second to improve the price in the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Yes?
Absolutely.
Pretty funny. When you're making bets in a certain way, you're hoping you don't cash. All right, we have gone over time yet again. We want to give folks a chance to go check out Matt's show, so we are out of here. I want to thank Muggs, the Handicapping Labrador. I want to thank Jonathan Kinchin. Most of all, I want to thank all of you for listening. We'll be back on Tuesday, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
We'll be back on Tuesday. We'll do some tournament talk. We'll recap the weekend, look ahead to the Breeders' Cup. Until then, I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. May you win all your photos.